Automobile theft is quite common around the world. Sometimes thieves are thwarted by sophisticated security devices. But other crooks use a much bolder method known as carjacking, where they forcefully take the vehicle from the owner. But on a Sunday night in Bethesda, Maryland, a rather peculiar carjacking incident took place. A group of thieves targeted a sleek new Porsche. However, their plan was foiled by an unexpected twist. The car's manual transmission. The car's owner had just stepped outside a local business when he found himself confronted by a group of 3 or 4 individuals. The armed assailants demanded the keys to his high-end vehicle. Sensing the danger, the owner gave up the keys, then made a quick decision and dashed back into the safety of the building. With the keys in hand, the carjackers jumped into the Porsche, ready to make their getaway. But as they settled in, they had a serious reality check. The intricate movements of clutch and gear was beyond their grasp. Or to put it another way, none of these clowns had any idea how to operate a stick shift. Unable to start the Porsche, the thieves had no choice but to abandon their mission. They fled the scene in another vehicle, leaving the Porsche behind. The fact that not one person in this group knew how to drive a manual transmission is not really too surprising. Manual transmissions, while once commonplace, have become a rare skill in today's world. According to recent reports, only about 18% of American drivers are proficient in driving a stick shift. For the car's owner, the outcome could have been much worse. But thanks to the manual transmission, his prized Porsche was spared from theft. Local authorities continue to investigate the incident, but one thing is clear. The lack of manual transmission knowledge turned out to be an unexpected ally. It all started one day in April in the village of Besson in southwestern France. There was a prominent landmark that sat on top of a cross of the Besson Catholic Mission. It was a gold-painted, rooster weather vane. But on this first day of April, it had mysteriously vanished. And in this small village of 5,500 inhabitants, a missing landmark was actually pretty big news. In fact, Michel Sabatieri, the town's elected culture representative, never gave up hope. For years, he fought to keep this story in the public eye. He did this by writing articles about it in newspapers and on social media. His hope was that whoever had the item would feel guilty, or at least someone would recognize the rooster if they saw it. But after nearly 25 years, Mr. Sabatieri, now in his 80s, figured it was probably a lost cause. That is, until he received a package in the mail. It was addressed to Mr. Chicken. Inside was the golden rooster along with a note that read, "After a long journey, I am back on the land where I was born. Dear Bessonet, I missed you. May my song resonate again." As you can tell, this person simply viewed the whole thing as a joke. However, local police found very little humor in the incident. The unexpected return of the rooster quickly turned into an investigation. They wanted to understand not only what had happened, but also why it was being returned some 25 years later. The town hall of Besson, the public prosecutor's office of Béziers, and the police of Florensac were mobilized. They were able to quickly identify the thief because he had paid for the shipping with his own credit card. When he was confronted by police, the thief confessed to the crime. He said he had taken the rooster when he was in his early 20s. It was on the night of a drunken party and was meant to be an April Fool's prank. Once he had sobered up, he felt too ashamed to return the rooster and hid it in his basement. Nearly 25 years later, the man, now in his 40s, found the rooster in the cellar and decided it was time to return it. The town of Besson plans to put the golden rooster back on the mission cross in a special ceremony. The Besson mayor jokingly said, "This time it will be really well attached so it can't fly away again." He also said this was possibly a youthful indiscretion, but he would remind people at the ceremony that ornaments like the rooster were part of the village's heritage and belongs to everybody. We can only imagine the joy that was felt by Michel Sabatieri. He spent 25 years tracking down the stolen bird, and his efforts were not in vain. As for the thief, since the statute of limitations for theft is 6 years, he cannot be criminally prosecuted. Thus, the Bezos public prosecutor's office decided to dismiss the case. It was also decided not to make the man's name public. After all, he not only pulled a stupid prank, he also foolishly used his credit card to make it easy for cops to find him 25 years later. The shock to his system when the police showed up at his door was probably enough punishment for him anyway. This is a rather bizarre story about a Georgia woman whose creativity allowed her to pull off a surprisingly bold but successful crime that left everyone in shock. The woman wanted to steal money from a local Waffle House in Riverdale. She came up with an idea that initially sounded pretty stupid. If she told someone about it, they would probably tell her it would never work. Her plan was simple: just pretend to be a worker at the restaurant and blend in with the day-to-day operations. She knew that posing as an employee would allow her to stay under the radar. But would it work? Well, dressed in a Waffle House hat, she showed up for work. But she not only showed up, she actually worked at the restaurant undetected for 2 whole hours. There was no explanation given for how she was able to do this for 2 hours without anyone questioning her. But with each passing minute, she meticulously observed the routines of the actual staff, biding her time for the perfect moment to strike. While the employees were distracted, she opened the register and swiftly stole an undetermined amount of cash. It was all captured on surveillance camera. Once she had her money, she made her exit as quickly and quietly as she had entered. It wasn't until later that the staff and authorities realized what had happened. We can only speculate that the manager was not around during this theft. Perhaps she told employees she was just hired and they assumed the absent manager knew who she was. Whatever the case, she managed to prove that the hat trick can actually work and she just might try this again. Perhaps using a different logo. The Riverdale Police Department quickly released a photo of the woman. She is seen here wearing a hat with the Waffle House logo. They are now asking for the public's assistance to identify this creative but elusive thief.